So Tashawn has her hand raised. I love it, love it. So come on, Tashawn. You're the next contestant on CSC is Right.
Okay. I was not gonna go first, but since nobody had raised their hand, because I don't want to throw things off, but that list that you had of things that people do, like signs or whatever, um, I do some of those things when I'm in a situation with a person where they've shown me that they don't care about my feelings. So we talked about how eights attract people that, have a certain personality type. And I've been in situations with people where it's clear that they are, and it's not just love relationships, but just relationships with people in general. It's clear that they are really enamored with their idea of who they think I am. And anything that I say or do that doesn't align with that is dismissed or ignored. And so then I feel like, okay, this is really about you. I'm just here to make you feel good about yourself. I'm just here to help you. I'm just here to, pump you up or support you or encourage you, whatever. It's very one-sided. And they usually think that they're very, and I won't say I won't say they think. They come off as being very giving and loving, but they're looking for appreciation. They're looking for a payoff on the things that they do. And so they really feel like they're being treated unfairly because they're doing all these things and nobody appreciates them. But then when you say, yeah, I don't want that, don't do that for me. I'm not comfortable with that. I actually don't like that. That's not how I dress. That's not what they can't see past the good thing. Like, oh, I'm doing something nice, so it's okay. Well, no, you're actually deciding, like you were talking about, if somebody says that they think you should wear something different. So they'll buy what they want you to wear. Or they'll tell, that, oh, I'm gonna take you get your hair done. Or, they'll force on you what they want, and they'll present it as being like super nice. And people that don't know them really think that they're just a very nice, giving person. And they do a lot of things. It's just when their actions bump up with the reality of how that other person actually feels and what they actually want. And then you tell them and they don't listen because they want it their way. And then it leads to those types of actions where you're like, oh, okay, if you don't care how I feel, then I don't care how you feel. If you're not interested in what's going on with me, then why am I putting all this interest in what's going on with you? If you're not supportive of me and what I actually want to do versus what you think I should do, then why, So I think that sometimes your actions can cause people to move into a place of, okay, because I do have problem getting rid of people. I mean, even if I like block their number or whatever, they'll call from a different number, or email me, send me flowers. Just crazy stuff where I'm like, okay, what do I have to do for you to just get the message? So, but then, of course, if you talk to them in another situation, it's totally that they were done wrong. This person was so toxic. They did blah, blah, blah. And never seeing that, okay, some of the things you did led to this. It wasn't just that you were, great and that person did nothing. And I think that's, something important to remember that we've talked about before. You have to own what part in that you did. And sometimes it is the fact that you didn't walk away soon enough. But sometimes it's that you are pushing your agenda in the relationship because you know what you want. And that person has to, follow the script that you've designed. And if they don't, then they're the problem, not the fact that you didn't honor who they were.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think, like I said, that's true. And I think from the toxic perspective, if you're being toxic based off their behavior, then there's nothing wrong with that because, they the ones that did it first. And, you're getting out of the relationship. So I think it still lines up. Because I think all of us will find ourselves in there somewhere, when we get angry or frustrated. But I definitely agree with that. So come on, Michonne.
I'm asking for a friend, of course. What is a reasonable for being single? I mean, is it how long they've been single? If they married 100 times, 200 times? What's a reasonable explanation for singleness?
Well, I think that's going to be different for different people. It's just about what you need. But like for instance, kind of what you were saying, being married. There are some women out here that say, if a guy's been married once and divorced, a lot of women might say, okay, I'm willing to go with that. I've even run into women who will not marry a divorced man. They just do not want to marry a divorced man. Then you'll run into women that maybe 2 times is too much, and they're like, okay, that's it. And then I run into people that'll talk to a guy that's been divorced 3 times. So I can't, I don't think anybody can really say what works for you. But I think that the core is, like I said, when you're trying to come up with that reason for the singleness, is why did you get the divorce? What happened? What did you learn from it? The growth side of it. And then again, is the person consistent in that growth cycle? So if they're saying, hey, I used to have a drinking problem, and I admit that was what destroyed my first marriage, but I've got that drinking thing under control. I'm going to AA. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And then you see that they are doing that. Because even when you're trying to meet with them on Thursday night, they're like, no, I got to go to AA. Tonight, I don't want to miss a meeting. I don't want to relapse. They're doing the behavior to show that they actually care about this. So, but I think, like I say, no matter what the situation is, it's going to be different for everybody. I don't think anybody can really tell another person. It's just going to be about what works for you. But I do think that there are some that are just 100% no-nos. Like if the dude was a convicted rapist or something, I don't think you would want to hang around. Okay, Chuck, come on, man.
First off, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
I want to comment on that relationship cycle that you had up. And I think that as Christians, it's important for us not to get caught on that dopamine fix, like when we were talking about compliments, or when a woman compliments your ego, that may cause you to overlook some of those things at the top of the arc that would normally cause you to disconnect. And it can be, energy is one thing, but some of these things that we gratify ourselves with masquerade under like chemistry. We have great chemistry. That means she's feeding your ego, or he's complimenting you and feeding your ego. And I think that we just have to we can't make snap decisions like the world does. Within a second or two, the world says, that's the guy, or that's the woman, or you're thinking of what the future is. And I think a lot of, functionally toxic people are, on some level, they understand that they're toxic. So they're going to test boundaries, and they're not going to show you, like on the first date, or at least for till that hook is set, they're not going to show you who that negative side of themselves. They're going to try to masquerade it. So I think the longer we're around and we give ourselves that disciplined approach to reasonably disciplined approach to meeting people, interacting with potential, even friendship relationships, but especially in romantic relationships, is taking it slow and steady and giving that person's character a chance to show itself, as opposed to their charm, whether it be male or female. So.
No, as always, that was awesome. I love that. And again, for all those people that know about the Enneagram, there's downsides to every Enneagram, and that's another thing to look for. There's about 9 different major traits that pop up based off somebody's Enneagram, and honestly, they're really easy to see. People fall into them over and over and over again. It's amazing how quickly they fall into them. And even what the one Tashawn mentioned, that neediness to give. where they just can't stop giving. That is showing that they're in a stress level. That's showing that they're not level. And we might say, because that energy goes along with the two. But we can say that, well, twos, there's nothing wrong with them being givers. There's nothing wrong with them being givers. Well, it is if they can't control their giving. Okay, because like she said, and I've even run into that myself, people have to give based off of what the person wants you to give. And even if they are going to buy a shirt in your same style, it's the fact that, like, I'm just going to be real. I tell a lot of the women that I date, don't buy me anything, especially if I feel like they have two energy. So I'll just say, don't buy me anything, unless we're, in this relationship for, 3 or 4 months. And it's amazing how some women really, that's hard for them. That's really, really hard for them. And that's just not something you want to do really quickly. And again, everybody, remember, we do like conversation. We just ask that you raise your hand so that we can have a good combo. And you don't have to just talk to me. You can actually make a response to Chuck or to Sean or to Davita, who's about to go next. So it's not about me. I'm just going to moderate who goes next and stuff like that so we can keep it order. So come on, Davita.
All right. Can y'all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hi, I miss you. I ain't seen none of y'all in a minute, and I see new faces. It's been too long. Okay. Yeah. So, first of all, this is a great topic. I came in a little bit late, but the slide was about how certain people attract toxic people. And I'm kind of on the fence with that because there are a lot of hurt people, a lot of broken people out here. Mm-hmm. And I don't feel that it necessarily reflects on you as an individual when you attract those type of people, because I believe in my case, I'm a very jovial type of person. I attract people who are hurt all the time because it's the God in me that they gravitate to. Okay. And so for me, it's a double whammy because I see it, but then I also have to vet people to protect myself. And so I wanted to say, as far as what Tajan was saying, because I have that same problem, try to get rid of folks. Because they see something that they like, and they see that you are where they want to be, and they gravitate, and it's hard for them to let go of that. But you have to protect yourself and say, okay, this is not going to work for me. So I got a question. When you see those red and yellow flags in other people, they may have been cheated on in the past, or they may have been hurt in the past, and so they become super clingy. Okay, that's like a yellow flag. And they have trust issues. They don't start a new relationship on a clean slate. It's like, do you know that person is not ready to be in a relationship because of the things that they're doing? But are you saying that they will never be? Because I think that sometimes when you see the red flags in a relationship and you say, okay, this is not going to work for me, and you come out of that relationship, sometimes people recognize what they miss, and they get themselves together, or they at least try to work on it and everything like that. And then you revisit that person in the future. Do you start a clean slate, or you take into that relationship what you already experienced with that person?
Well, I think that, we talked about consistency. I think it's just whether or not the person is consistent. Okay. And I do think we all can be toxic at one time, moment in our life. So I do agree that, there is those points if you try to hook up with somebody or get with somebody as they're maybe going through some stuff, high stress, we talk about that in this group a lot, high stress, that they will come off as toxic because it forces us into the lower levels of our personality. But, okay, cool, from Chuck. But what I think what we need to do is, even if you're looking at that toxicity as like a yellow flag, that's going to, again, be on you. You know, the problem is with people is some people will get over it, maybe whatever the issue, because we don't know what the issue is. We're talking about a vague issue. They might get over it in a week. Somebody else might take 10 years. It's about what you're willing to do, you know, and how much time you're willing to waste. I mean, because at the end of the day, there are literally billions of people in the world. So why waste your time on somebody that doesn't have their life together? Now, if they have a little yellow, you know, they just a little toxic and, you know, you can work with it, then I can see, you know, that working out. Just got a little acid in the water. But I don't necessarily know why you would hang around if they're extremely toxic. If you know from the jump, okay, this person is just going to drag me through the mud and I need to get out now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you would have to be broken to stay in that. You know, you would have to be severely broken. But I mentioned it because I have been in relationships where I've broken the relationship off, and then the guy comes back years later and was like, oh man, you know, she was really a good one, you know, but they didn't see it at the time because they had some stuff they had to work on, you know, and that's what happens. And I feel like as a Christian woman, do you go back into it just like, you know, this person is broken and they treated me bad, or you start to clean? I typically would start to slate clean. You know, I keep it in the back of my head, but at the same time, that person has experienced some growth, and I mean, at least they come back saying that they do, but then you got to give them the time to see if they do, which leads me to my second point, and I'm gonna wrap it up, because what Chuck was talking about is how in the beginning, you know, people show you who they want you to be, but you have to give that measure of time to let their character develop, because people will say anything out of their mouth, but you have to give it time. And so one thing that I've noticed that men will try to do with me, they try to fast track me. Because
that's actually a toxic behavior.
Yes, they try to fast track me because they like, you know, she kind of quick. So I'm gonna throw everything at the wall and I'm gonna make sure, you know, it sticks, and oh, you're beautiful and this and that and everything, da, 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 da. And I don't buy into that. So my reason for being single is because after a while they get tired and then they just fall off because they're like, okay, she's not falling for these things. You know? But so that is worked to my advantage. I move very slow, you know, or I might give the appearance of being giving because, you know, I am a 2, but my heart of heart, I've kept to myself. You know, certain things I've kept to myself and it's on reserve until I see what it is that I want to see in that opposite person.
Okay, well, that's cool. That's cool. Come on, Minister Sean. We gotta make that the new nickname so we get it right.
Okay.
I wanted to answer you, Davida, actually. A couple of things where we apply the scripture here. One, scripture teaches us that we have a spirit of discernment. The Holy Spirit gives us that spiritual gift. And that reason for having it is one, for what your question is. You have to determine from a level in Christ whether or not this individual, if you've broken off with them once before and they've come back, one, am I seeing the same behavior exhibited that made me decide I can't do this from the beginning? And then from there, if that is fixed, you don't want to hold over their head something that they've been working on, but that doesn't mean it just goes away as something you're monitoring. Because if it was something you monitored to begin with, it would be something that I'm assuming that you in general, no matter who you're looking at, you've been monitoring within anyone. So it doesn't disqualify whatever that trait is. So no, you want to give them the opportunity and space to be able to be who they're presenting to you in that moment. But you put them back in that observation period, just as if it was the first time. Secondly, as far as you being a two, like myself, Scripture teaches us once again that to everything there is a time, there is a season, and we pick up the phrase that some people are in your life for a season, a reason, or a lifetime. And it could be that a person have a romantic interest in you because of the qualities that you have that anybody, be it romantic or friendship, would want to be around. Then you have to decide for yourself, through the aid of the Holy Spirit, is this person here for a romantic reason, whether or not they came for that reason or not? Or is it something that you can help them to learn, even if it is a thing of something within how they're trying to approach dating? If no matter where you are with that, if you decide for yourself, this isn't for me, don't try to hold on to a person that you're telling yourself that they're not for you, because their lesson that they need to learn could be in you releasing them, for them to not have that same thing happening in the next time they approach someone. And one of the hardest things to do, and I've done it with the relationship.
You're on mute, Sean.
Oh, okay. Sean went on. No, I actually think everything, Sean said is great. And one of the things I just was going to piggyback on really quick is that I do think, we need to, in my opinion, we definitely need to be picking up lessons from our relationship. Each relationship is kind of like a trial, almost like a test as in school, teaching us, and when you look, actually, when I was doing some research for this, one of the things that it talked about was, how do people see their last relationship, as far as being toxic, they're always blaming the last person if they haven't had growth from that. And, I agree, with that as well, because one of the problems is that we're not learning from these relationships many times. And sometimes that's the whole point, is just to learn, to grow, to get better. And in each, I know this is slightly, like I say, off topic, but I just wanted to bring it up because I do think in that whole avoiding of the toxic person, you can learn from that. You get that experience, you get, like I said, that discernment, and then you move beyond it. Like, Sean said, you got some people that the whole purpose of them being in your life is just for a season. And maybe that season was to teach you one or two things, and maybe that season was to teach them one or two things. But then once you get beyond that, you don't really need that person in your life anymore. And it's time to push them away. That's some good food, ain't it, Davida? What you cooking, Sakanda? I can't see that.
She's doing a shake.
Oh, she making.
And I have a salad.
Y'all eating serious breakfast this morning.
It's not breakfast, it's noon.
Oh, I'm sorry, lunch.
When it's hot outside, I do salads. It's too heavy foods or too much for the summer.
I get it. So Gwen, what do you think about these toxic people?
I see that it definitely resonates with me. So I'm kind of new to the whole dating thing because I was married for so long. So I guess next month will be 3 years that I've been divorced. But what I wanted to point out, well, just not point out, but just something that resonates with me was what Sean was talking about, and Davida was talking about how people come into your life and how what their reason for being in your life is and what you take from it. So for the past month or so, our pastor at our church has been talking about godly relationships. And he's spoke to the men a lot. And this past Sunday, he got around to speaking to the women. And he spoke on, I took a few notes. He spoke on 1 Peter chapter 2, and he went through verse 21 through 25 about modeling, about wives, modeling the manner of wife you should be. And, you know, no matter what that husband is doing, don't harden your heart and don't get into the whole tit for tat. And even though he may not be doing what he's supposed to be doing, continue to be the wife that God needs you to be. And eventually, if he's God led, his attitude will change and it's going to line up. And I found that to be very relative in my marriage, because I did find myself hardening my heart for a lot of stuff that he was doing. And I got to the point where I was like, well, forget it. If he ain't gonna do it, I ain't gonna do it. And so that's definitely something that I took away from that. And I was at an event recently and there was a numerologist there. And so he gave me these numbers, so the 579 was my numbers. And so he was asking, you know, little stuff about me and asked about my ex-husband. And I gave him his birthday and he's like, you know, y'all numbers line up. And I was like, well, I don't think we're good for each other because we was together for 26 years, married for 23, and we still got divorced. And what he said to me was, that's because you were his teacher. And I said, what do you mean by that? And he, you know, just based off things that, you know, he was asking and I was responding to. He's like, he came into your life, and even though the relationship lasted as long as it was, you were his teacher. And when it was time, you know, although it may have ended in divorce, it may not have ended nicely, he learned all he needed to learn from you. And, you know, maybe you stuck around a lot longer than you needed to, because there were some signs, I'm sure, after 26 years that you saw. But you know, it was, you know, just you were his teacher. And so now that's that. But I thought that resonated, that whole situation, what Davida and Sean was talking about, how a person comes into your life and, you know, what your meaning to that person is and what your meaning to them is, and vice versa. So yeah.
You know, I mean, I could see that. I did, but I will just say this, because I did want to do some things for, you know, divorces and potential divorces in the future. Like I said, we're doing a lot of reorganization and different things like that now. But I will just say that I truly believe, especially being divorced myself, that a lot of divorces can be, you know, canceled or pushed away if we have a better understanding of, you know, who we are, what the other person is, and if they have that understanding as well. Because I think a lot of times we see ourselves as in such a narrow perspective. We're only seeing our side of it, and then we're looking for people to agree with us instead of looking for what could be a little bit better truth to help us get out of our own funk, so that we can better work with other people. But I know that that's not the topic today, so I'm just going to continue to keep it moving. So, Mr. Mitch, do you have anything to add about all these toxic relationships?
I'm unmuted. Okay. Excuse me. Yeah, I've been very fortunate. I've had many failed relationships. And so I've looked at it and I like to try to understand. So I looked at where we are in the world today, and I look at the Bible, and I did something I call reverse engineer the scriptures, right? You go back and you see how we got to where we are. So I've talked to men that have been married a long time, and I've had a woman, I was on a dating site, and she said something to me, and I was watching a religious movie. I'm actually watching it today. It started last night. And the message seems to be the same of where we are right here and where we started, okay? And the answer that I keep hearing is, I don't agree with the start and where we are, because we're still at the start. And what I mean is this, is I've talked to men, I've talked to women. One woman told me this. She says, you can't criticize women. Ah, okay. And I asked men, how do you stay married? He goes, basically, you agree with Eve. And so I look back in the scriptures and I see what happened with Adam and Eve. So we found out what happened was we had Adam and Eve that were not trying to come together for the Lord. And now we see today that we have a world where it tells us we should always agree with Eve. And I was just, and the problem is that what it means is the men say, well, to do that, basically women teach us to lie. We have to lie to women. And I don't want to lie to women. So what I'm wondering is we haven't gone further. It seems we're back from where we started, that we have people who say, you're not supposed to discuss and exchange ideas. And I think that's where the problem started with Genesis. And I think that's where we are today.
That's an interesting point. I have to look more into that. But I will say that I see, like I say, that again, I don't know if you, like I say, took the Enneagram test, because we use that a lot again. But one of the things like we talk about with that is that there are some domineering women that have certain domineering traits. And when people do marry those women generally are more of the, for lack of a better term, the pants wearers in the group. But then you do have a whole nother set of women that really don't want to wear the pants at all. You know, my ex-wife, she was actually the reverse. She did not want to wear the pants. You know, she did not try to get me to agree with her. She was always agreeing with me. So, and that's kind of what I was saying at the very beginning about the signal and about the confusion of the signal, because a lot of times if we're around one thing, we see that so much that we think it's always like that. And while I do agree that there are some issues out there that need to be addressed, and I would probably want to go a little bit deeper because I think your concept is a little thicker than what I can discuss or what we can discuss in this particular meeting. But I would say that there are so many different personalities that if you put your mind into it, if you were just looking for a woman that's a little bit more easygoing, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them, but you have to kind of be able to see them because they're generally more in the background because that's just more of what their natural way is.
Jay, I've had both women, the full spectrum, the women that are very strong and won't budge, and the woman, I had a fiance who was so agreeable, she let people hurt her. And so it's what I say, it's not about, the man ruling or the woman ruling, it's about God ruling. And the only way to do that is for the woman to speak up. Sometimes for her to listen to the man and the man listen. So both extremes are, if a woman just doesn't speak up, I tell her, you're not doing your job. I'm only a man. I need help.
Okay, I'm starting to see just communication. So we're just talking communication. And
that's it, bingo.
That. Yeah,
bingo.
I agree with that. Yeah, because I've talked to some women and they don't communicate. Some of them just don't communicate well, and I run into guys that don't communicate well. But yes, you're right. If people are not communicating, if they're not telling what they really feel, because I see what you're saying. Like if you, say for instance, I don't know if you can see this, was like Nestle Pure Life, but if you secretly like Deer Park water or whatever. And every time, you're married to somebody and every time they buy this or you buy this and then they want the Deer Park, but then they're not saying, look, I like Deer Park. Mitch, can you just buy me some Deer Park? Why must you always buy Nestle Pure Life? And so you're right. If they're not speaking up and then one day they blow up because they want you to read their mind, that's not healthy. People need to be in communication. With things. I definitely get that side of it.
Thank you.
Okay, you good? I'm sorry, because I know Tashawn has her hand up.
Thank you.
No, appreciate it. Come on, Tashawn.
I hear a pattern in what everybody's saying that, was what Mitch said about, communication is important, and the most important part of it is the listening. Are you really hearing what someone is saying? And listening for understanding. So it's good to ask the right questions, but if you're not really listening to what they're saying versus what you're trying to, hear, then it's still a failed communication. So I think that, you're on point, Mitch, with people. I mean, I think everybody, women, yes, but men too, they want to hear what they want to hear. But if you really want to have a healthy relationship, you do have to listen to understand the person versus listen for your own personal validation or just to get your own needs met. It's a give and take, and listening in that way is showing a love and caring for that other person, a true desire to connect to them, to know where they are, to understand their needs. And so you also can know what's the effective way to communicate with them your needs and how you feel, so that there's good, back and forth of being able to fulfill each other's needs and make each other feel heard and validated. And then too, having the trust so that when you do have to tell someone something that maybe they don't want to hear, they know that you have taken the time to invest in them in that way, and that you're really telling them out of love and care and concern, not because you're trying to harm them or degrade them or marginalize them.
Excellent. Come on, Secunda. I don't know who had it on next, but Secunda hasn't talked. So come on, Secunda.
Communication is everything, and I'll just piggyback a little bit off of what others have said. But we have to remember that all of us have been brought up in different cultures. Just because, like Jay, you're born and raised in the U.S. I'm born and raised in the U.S. Our ethnicity is pretty much half of it is the same, but it doesn't mean that we were brought up in the same way or form or fashion. And I believe a lot of times people assume that the cultures are the same. They pretty much limit cultures to if somebody's coming from another country. So what in my household, I brought my kids up to understand that the word shut up is a bad word. So, and I explain why, because a lot of times it's not used in a positive manner. So if you tell my kids that they're adults, they're going to look at it as in a different form or fashion. And when we are sitting down talking and communicating, and someone's trying to express their self to you, it's always good to, when you're learning each other, to say, okay, this is what I heard. Am I correct? So I don't assume that I'm hearing it in that form or fashion, because what one person may mean, it could be totally different to another person. So the feedback is very common, which you don't hear about a lot of times. You pretty much hear about it like only in businesses, but feedback is always common and even if you are your feelings have been hurt and that person is learning you, and they may not realize what you experienced in the past or what triggered you off, don't go into, oh, this is a red flag and they don't care about my feelings per se. They may not realize that triggered you. So you can say, hey, that point in my life right now, I'm not at that point where I can joke. That's a sensitive area and this is why. So the vulnerability, communication with feedback to make sure you understand completely and not assume. Because I believe we take that age and maturity out of line. Age and maturity doesn't go together at all. That's always been a false lie. So that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick, that a false lie is a truth.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yes, it is the truth. It is the truth that it's a false lie, my friend. So.
Yeah, we know what you mean. I'm joking on you.
I know you are.
But that was good, Secunda.
And by the way,
come on, Davida.
First of all, I know the spirit is here because everything Secunda just said, I can apply to my current situation. But sometimes people don't know you when you're in the beginning, they don't know you. And so, like you said, they come from a different background. And they not only do they come from a different background, but they're accustomed to dealing with other people. And so it's important that you realize you are dealing with a new individual. This is a whole new mix right here, you know, you and that person. And so that I wanted to say, because Hickles, Sakanda, you hit it spot on. That is not necessarily an ending, but it's a reset, because we teach people how to love us. And if you know how God loves you, then your standard is I would like for my person to love me the way that God loves me. And anything less than that is unacceptable. And so that's a hard line to draw, because, I mean, not for me, but for some people it is, because they don't want to be alone. But when you get to a point where you have a relationship with the Lord, when you easily leave a relationship because you're like, I'm not alone. I have someone who loves me every day. I have someone who tells me I'm beautiful every day, and tells me all the things. And he also tells me the things I need to tighten up on too. So you don't need to have that other person for the validation. And then you make yourself free for the person that God has for you. And then I also wanted to say, like JL said, Mitch really hit that communication piece. That's actually a very deep thing. That's going to be a whole nother meeting, because it really does start with that. People don't always say what they need in a relationship for the fear of hurting that other person or fear of being isolated. But you really have to be upfront and honest about who it is you are, what your wants and needs are, so that nobody wastes anybody's time, and you can free that person up. I'll tell you, one time a gentleman told me, you know, if we're not together, you'll never find somebody else that's going to love you like I do. And I said, that right there is a lie. I said, you know why? I know you don't love me, because if you did, you would want love from me regardless of whether I was with you or not. Okay? That is what love is. And for you to say that I'm not going to do well because I'm not with you, I already know that what you're telling me is a what? Sonda, it's a false lie. But but I mean, it's a way that people try to do things, and you realize that this is something I need to move away from, because this person is not going to love me the way that God loves me. Because what God says when he loves me, it says, you know what? You can go on out there and not do what I've commanded you to do. And when you come back, I see you when you come back, you know, because, and it gives the freedom. It's no threats. You know, and you can't make it without me, because God knows who he is. He's ultimate, he's supreme, and he knows what he gives to you. You know, so that's really it. The takeaway for me is that we teach people how to love us, and you have to love yourself first, and you have to have that relationship and communication with God first before you can even show them what to do and how to love you.
No, I definitely am agreeing with that. But Cephas done showed us his face. Got something to say, man? You want to add to this discussion? You trying to figure out how to unmute it? There you go.
Yeah. I don't know why I fumbled around with that just now. Not really anything I can add. It's just that it's good that I'm learning all this. That's all I can say, really.
Cephas been around before. He showed his face before.
Yeah, I know, but sometimes he's showing his face. Sometimes that's when people getting ready to, to break it down. They've been listening the whole time, and he's like, "Well, let me wax this philosophical up on y'all and knock it out." But Chuck has his hand up. Come on, Chuck.
I just want to say that I think that it's important for us and everyone on their level or where they're at to make the best choices possible. Because I think one of the deficiencies in healthy relationship or people being toxic is that they don't see healthy relationships, or they're around toxic environments growing up. So how, until you're old enough or mature enough to think about what you're thinking about, even if you're in the church, you're going to be, just living what you saw. So I think that, that I don't know what the solution is other than just in personal accountability and how you present to the world and the choices that you make. But I just think that's one of the reasons why there's a lot of toxic people out there, is because they come from toxic environments and toxic households where they haven't seen a healthy relationship.
No, I agree with that. I definitely think past does it, because, I remember watching this thing as they were explaining, like, why do women stay, like, when they're being abused, like, their husbands violently, hitting them or whatever, domestic violence. And, it was interesting that a lot of those, like kids that grow up in that environment, even though their heart went out to their mom, when she was dealing with it, the boys grow up to beat their wives and the girls grow up to look for men to beat them. Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting that, just like you're saying, Chuck, seeing that toxicity, it seeps so down into our hearts and our minds, and we believe that that's how it's supposed to be. And a lot of times we don't even understand that there's something better out there.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I'm with you 100%. Come on, Sakanda.
Forgot, I think, right? Perception. Some people don't have another side of the field. Like, I like what Minister Sean said was, maybe you're in that person's life to show them, to show them the other side. We don't understand all the time why God chooses people to come into our lives or how he does it. But one way, it's never a two-way. It's never a one-way street, excuse me. It's a two-way street. It's not just for one person to learn. It's for us to understand and learn too. There's something that we can always gain out of any type of relationship. And even if it's just endurance or better communication or coming in with our mind being open. But one of the things that it came to me now, I'm a gram. One of the things came to me is we should go into everything willing to learn, willing to be vulnerable, willing to give people a chance to a degree. You have your guards up, but you don't open your door and let everybody into your inner core. You keep them on the outer core. And as you have them on the outer core, you have an open mindset. You come in because we don't know everybody's story. And like you said, somebody who's recovering from alcohol is committed and they understand what has taken in the past and the importance. I'd rather someone say, look, you're a distraction for me and I can't go backwards. I'd rather somebody tell me that and move forward because they understand their value, how important it is, than to keep compromising, trying to satisfy me. And dang it, Lord Jesus. I think that was it. I can't remember. I need to eat.
No, you need to write it down. That's what I got to do because I be the same way.
Yeah, sometimes I have to write notes myself. I'll write them down over here. So I don't forget, because I try to listen when people are talking, so then I forget what I'm about to say.
Yeah, being vulnerable is very important. But once again, yeah, you have your guards up. But if you go in with, because this person done this to you, then you're making the next person pay for the price of what somebody else done to you. And that's a clear sign of forgiveness. So I should never have to pay for somebody's past debt. It doesn't mean that you go in jumping in and saying, hey, you do it all the same way. You just be mindful. You may have to tiptoe this time instead of skating in or running in. You may have to jog in, monitor. This is what I was going to say. Continuously search your motives. Don't worry about them. You pray to God about them, but search your motives. Why you do what you do also.
I think that's pretty good right there.
That's good.
Hey, Mustafa, I see you joined us today. You want to say something about toxicity? The ladies always like to hear from the men. Are you a place where you can talk?
Yeah, I was moving around a lot, but that's why I came in late to begin with. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Is this more about like from a romantic relationship point of view, or like just people in general, like toxic people in
I
general?
mean, you could speak to it either way. I think both of them will go, apply. But this group is generally about romance.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess what I would say is, I know for one, when it comes to dealing with toxic people, it's more about kind of like identifying if that's even the case. Sometimes, I think there's so much complexity around even determining if someone is even toxic. I think another sister mentioned that um, we all come from different backgrounds. So, how somebody may interact with you is different from, um, you know, different from person to person. So if you come from a different environment, like here, I live here in San Antonio, Texas. A lot of Texans are very friendly, especially here in San Antonio, being that it's a very family-oriented environment. I come from, the East, Baltimore, New York. How I talk is more upfront. How I talk is more, I wouldn't even say it come off abrasive because I'm a nice person as well, but just being more upfront about what I need or my desires, or being very open to communication. I'm not afraid to communicate with people, right? So some people may say, "Oh, that's toxic. Like, why are you, why are you abrasive?" Like, it may come off abrasive, right? But in reality, it's just like, no, I mean, that's just the way that I communicate. I didn't communicate to you rudely. I was just being upfront about, what I desired or what I want, and so it's hard to kind of categorize toxic, toxicity. But when it comes to actual toxic people, you identify the signs, especially in a romantic relationship. Identifying the signs is key. Sometimes, especially if you are really in a place where you desire a relationship, I've had not many situations, but where I identify possible signs or flags, and I'm in that mode of like compromising with something because I want to develop a relationship, what I'm saying, that's meaningful, you know what I mean? So, and I just realized at a certain point that nobody's perfect. Like, everybody literally just has something. And the way I see it is, everybody has pros and cons, no matter who the person is. Everyone has pros and cons. Everyone. There are things that you will like about the person, there are things you won't like about the person. That's a fact. Nobody's perfect. And so as a result, identifying that and accepting that, right? And then being able to kind of communicate and develop a relationship with someone. But with that said, that's what I mean by identifying the signs. You can see a flag from someone and ignore it or compromise on it, when in reality, you may say, hey, that's a red flag. Like, anytime in the past, you may say, hey, that's a red flag, and move away from that person. Toxicity can come in all forms. Manipulation is very toxic. Narcissism is very toxic. Constantly being used or having a perception that you're being used by someone is very toxic as well. There are all kinds of things. And so from my experience, those are some of the things that I would say would be toxic for sure. When it comes to avoiding them, of course, looking at the signs. And then I would say just getting to know people will help you kind of iron out who is toxic and who is not. Toxic is also, when someone's toxic, it can also be depending on the actual person. So there's a toxic person, and the person who's experiencing that toxicity, it can differ. You know what I mean? So whatever is toxic to you, you can identify that and bring it to the table. I wouldn't say just canceling or exiting or escaping someone who you feel is toxic, because having communication with the person, seeing if this person is really that's just the way they are, and it doesn't sit with you, or it's like, oh, I didn't know I was coming off like that to you. I'm sorry. You know what I mean? And then that's how you work it out. But you don't want to just assume, oh, it's toxic. This is hurting me so bad. You know what I mean? And not even at least communicate it to the person, before you come to the conclusion like, oh, okay, this is just not for me. This is not my environment. Peace out. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing. So yeah, I mean, that's my take.
Well, yeah, but I also think just to add on to what you said really quickly, is that a lot of times that hypersensitivity, that some people have in itself is toxic. I actually, there was a young lady that I didn't even date her. I think she was interested in me. And it was crazy because it was just the way that she was sensitive about everything I said and everything that I did. It was crazy. Like if you touched her arm, it's like, why you touch me? You shouldn't be touching me. Oh my gosh, you're touching me. And it's like, dude, I barely brushed up against you. It was a mistake. Yeah. But that high level of sensitivity, worry, concern. And again, because we talk Enneagram a lot, you will see it when it comes to stress, when it comes to maturity, which are the other two key elements for the new people in this group that we talk about. In those all up there with their personality, I mean, that's really telling you whether or not the person's toxic. You can just look at those three elements and see. Because like my toxicity, as the eights, we get grumpy, we can get bossy. To Sean, no, that's how we do. We'll get controlling. We'll take over the situation. And that's just how we roll. Michonne has got that 8 energy. Sakanda got a little 8 in her. And all of us will just take it over. But I'm gonna get rid of my toxicity right now and let Chuck take over. So go ahead, Chuck.
Just something you said real quick that reminded me that if you've done sports or anything, like when you get a bruise or an injury, and let's say somebody, even though it could be a beloved family member, touches it, what's your reaction? It's that immediate instinctual reaction to, and wounded people, I guess, is a form of toxicity. It's just, I think when you were saying that person was hypersensitive, it's whatever you were touching was that immediate reaction, that bone deep bruise where it's just everything hurts, and they can be, normal in a minute, and you just, I've been around people like that too, so it just kind of resonated when you talked about that.
No, I definitely
something to recognize.
I like that though. I like the whole concept of sports injury or just the injury period, because it's definitely you hurt your arm, you don't want anybody touching that arm. Mm-hmm. You hurt your foot, you don't want, and then here's what it is too. You will only let the people you trust touch that body part when you're hurting. So even like if your feet are hurting and you could have somebody say, oh, I'll rub your feet. Do you know how to rub feet? It's not that the person's being nice to you, but then you're like, no, I don't know if I trust you to rub my feet.
You know what it is? Right here. Let me rub your neck. Like, nothing.
That's good. I love that analogy. That's true.
All right, so we're gonna pick on Sunita. She's been quiet. She just been over there watching us all this time. Come on, Sunita, tell us something good.
Well, everything that everyone has said has been really good points. I look at it in terms of a toxic attribute as someone that's selfish, that it's all about them. And if you allow them to just fully engulf your life, they'll take the life out of you. They will suck everything out of you. And so I look at it in terms of, are you adding to my life or you're subtracting? Because I can do bad by myself. And so I had to learn that. And it's all about assessing, if you're in a relationship, just constantly assessing and, call it for what it is and stop making excuses. I remember T.D. Jakes had a sermon about, someone throws crumbs at you and you just be chomping at the bit. Why not get the whole pie? Why not just hold out and get the whole pie instead of just be satisfied with some crumbs? So selfishness for me is a big deal. If I see that, I just want to tend to run because it's all about them. It's all about them getting their unmet needs at your expense. So.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm definitely with you. So Courtney, what do you believe about that? What you say?
Chuck is leaving
us.
Oh,
Chuck, I'll see you later, Chuck.
Bye. Have a good weekend.
Courtney, you want to talk for us for a second? Or are you in a bad place? Oh, here she comes.
Hi. You want me to talk on what the last person just said, or in general?
I actually wanted you to sing your favorite Disney song.
Don't pay him no mind, Courtney.
Your phone. I'm sorry, I missed it. Could you say that again? Your phone was breaking up, or either it was mine. Can you say it again?
I was just joking on you. You could just pick whatever point you want to talk about.
I wanted to hear that song.
I don't think I really have much to say. I'm really here to learn. I know I've experienced a long-term relationship myself with a very toxic person, and I know that our backgrounds were different. I feel in general I was just, naturally being me, and trying to be kind and follow the guidelines and things of that nature, because I believe in God and the Bible. But it seemed like in the end I had to really do some reflection. Like, am I being used? What is really going on? Like, how do you turn the other cheek? Like, it's just so many other different things. But I feel like now I'm sitting back and just watching. I'm definitely not in a rush to get in anything, but that toxic stuff is serious. That's all I really have. I'm learning myself. I'm learning a lot from you guys, but I'm just taking it all in because I'm in a healing process.
Hey, that's good too. Mm-hmm. That's good too.
Courtney, did you do your Enneagram?
I did. I don't think I've seen the that circle graph like you guys, but I got an email that says I'm a type 6, 4, and 3.
Okay. Okay. So yeah. So we'll be going over the Enneagram more in the future, but it's always good to know your numbers. So the more you hang out with us, the more we can talk specifically to your problems. But like they kind of said at the beginning before, I think some people weren't even on at that time. I definitely think toxic people hit certain Enneagrams a little bit more than others. I do think 2s and 6s and even sometimes 8s can find a lot of toxic people, even though we will find them in reverse of each other. And I just think it's reasons for that. 6s generally are looking for support. 2s are generally looking to help someone. So they generally will find guys that are women that have victim mentality. And then 8s also have that same energy trying to protect, not necessarily trying to give, but to protect. And so we can run into a lot of toxic people. So I think Secunda was next, and then Minister Sean. Come on, Secunda.
It just came to me. I was just speaking about being mindful of toxic relationships, and then she made a big point also about when people are in long-term relationships or just any relationship that was toxic. The question is, you got to ask yourself, are you toxic now? Because we could go and be with someone we don't like. This is something that God told me when I was in Washington. He said, you don't like the effect or the pain, but you keep running to it because it's actually a comfort zone to you, even though you don't like the effect or the pain of it.
I agree with that 100%. That was one of the things that I even had to learn when I came out of my marriage was I was definitely attracted to the same energy. The same energy that I came out of, I was attracted to. And I also understand even that whole toxic thing because, like, my father-in-law, he married this woman really, really quickly. And he didn't find out until a year and a half later that she had been abused in her previous marriage. And the way he found out was they were just in the house one day and they had an argument and he thought it was over and he's walking away from her and she starts throwing stuff at him. And I mean throwing stuff. And you're talking about a late 60s guy, you know, and he doesn't need to be dodging literal objects being flown through the air. But, you know, it is what it is. Come on, Minister Sean. Minister to us.
So I actually have a question to pose to the group.
Now we can't hear you. You muted yourself.
Sorry, everybody want to call me while I'm on the call. My question is, for those of us, and I think if not all, most of us can say that we have encountered a toxic person. What do you do in order to make sure that your experience with that individual do not carry over into your next relationship?
So I can chime in.
Go ahead, Mustafa. Next anyway. Go ahead.
So yeah, it comes back to kind of being accepting of yourself, kind of loving yourself, right? And I know loving yourself is it's a very when I say overused, you understand what I'm saying. When I say overused, I'm not saying that it actually is, but I'm saying we say it a lot, but right, but like the core of what that really means, you know what I mean? Like, you see, because we are constantly changing, right? Even let's say, you know, me, I'm 25. 10 years from now, I may have to find out I gotta love myself again, right? I could change up, you know, all kinds of stuff. I start getting wrinkles here, start getting freckles here. Like, yo, I gotta love myself again. You know what I'm saying? Or it's like, not even from a physical perspective, just how my character could change, right? I could have kids in the future, and I'm just constantly, you know, moving here. Don't got time to really focus on aspects of myself. I gotta focus on my wife. Gotta focus on my, you know, so. And then 10 years from now, again, it could be the same thing. So loving ourselves is it's accepting yourself. Like, hey, look, this is who I am. Like, you know, I can't, you know, something I say to some people is like, you are you forever. Even you now, you may pass away, you know, in the future, one passes away, but your spirit, you are still you. You can never change that. So once you are you, that's it. You know what I mean? And so coming to terms with accepting who you are really will help you when it comes to navigating in a relationship, you know? Something that and a good example of this is, I have a friend who was dealing with a very toxic woman. In a sense, the woman had upbringing where the mother and father were always fighting. Like, I'm talking like domestic violence and, you know, fighting, like things like that. And he had a very bad situation where basically like they were on the side of the road, and I think she even hit him and causing a whole accident, like on the road, you know what I mean, amongst other people. And he had to call the police on her, and he never did that before, you know. And as a result, he kind of had to move away. And something I told him, which is something that I kind of also went through in the past, and I basically got out of it. I said, I used to have an ex who I used to go with her to her therapy sessions, okay? I would go with her to her therapy sessions. At the end of the day, the relationship didn't work out for a couple reasons. There was narcissism involved. But one thing I told him is, if you were in a relationship where you're taking your ex or whoever you're helping, right, trying to get better therapy-wise, and then after the relationship, you got to go to therapy, that wasn't a good relationship. Like, if
if the person that you're trying to help end up taking you to therapy, that's going backwards. You know what I mean? That's going backwards in life. You know what I'm saying? That's something I told him. And the reason is, if you can't leave this woman alone, you need to question your own value, your own self-worth, your own appreciation, self-love, all that. Because if you can't leave her, there's something that's keeping you associated to her despite the negativity, despite the toxicity. And so to be honest, the core of the answer when we talk about that question that the minister asked is truly accepting yourself and loving yourself. And like I said, the word loving yourself, or the phrase can be overused, but looking at the core of what that means is being able to accept yourself. And once you do that, despite what could happen at the end of a relationship, it won't take you long to necessarily move on, because number one, you are accepting of yourself, you love yourself, you can manage while you are still looking for the right person. And what Sister said back earlier is having a relationship with God and looking onto God and believing in him, and God will deliver or gift you with whatever you're looking for at the right time, especially if it's a good thing. So that's what I would say. Truly accepting yourself will kind of get you through those situations, to not be affected greatly after a breakup. So that's what I want to say.
My bad. I was muted. Before we go to Davida, and also that was good, Mustafa. Just remember, that we're pretty much at the 1 o'clock mark. So we're probably going to hang out for a little while. I can't stay too long today, but I also did want to let everybody know again, the people that weren't here at the very beginning, that Christian Singles Connect is becoming an organization. We've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes to not only get activities going, but also to make sure that we're consistent with what we're talking about into the future. We'll also start picking on people like Davida to start branches in Baltimore, and we know we got some people in Texas, so we want to start doing that as well to do the activities. Right now, Seconda is doing our activities here in Georgia, but we want to be able to do activities in all of the cities and states where we have members. So we will start to lean on people. I'm leaning a little bit on Davida right now just because she's been around so long. But that is one of the things that we definitely want to do. And we have a website that should be going live pretty soon. And we also are going to be starting to ask for, and I'm going to go into this a little bit more over the next 3 weeks. We're going to be starting to ask for a little bit of money to help in that, little membership dues. It's not a lot of money, something like $4 or $5 a month. And we can just have it where it just takes out recurring charge. Y'all know how it works, like Netflix and stuff like that, because things cost money. Everything costs money. And we're trying to do our best to organize and have, resources available to you to help in your, in your dating life. So we would hope that $50 a year is not too much, to ask, for that. But anywho, come on, Davida, and we're, like I said, at the 1 o'clock mark.
Sure, I'm not going to say too much. Hold on. Mitch, you raising your hand, or you saying, hey, are you leaving?
Yeah, I wanted to share something I think we all can relate to, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
Okay, I'm sure we all agree music is very powerful in sharing spiritual messages, both good and bad, right? So I was out on a dating site some time ago, and I sent a song to a woman because I try to share the message of God, which, I struggle with. And we're all just sinners. We're all struggling. And she sent me back another song. And this was the sad thing about the song she sent me. She sent me a song about a woman singing. This message was, how can I get my man to love me? And I responded to her, he should have loved you before he ever met you.
That's right. Let me find out. That's right. And be prepared to love.
Right.
That's right. All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's a good point. Because like you said that, I say a good woman is a wife before she's ever married. That's what I believe, you should be prepared for that man. So that when he comes in your life, you don't have to rearrange things just to accommodate him. But, okay, so what I was going to say in response to the question that Minister Sean posed is how do you avoid, I guess, or what do you do after the demise of a relationship with a toxic person? I believe that's what he said. And I'm going to kind of piggyback on what Mustafa said, but also include that it takes time after that relationship ends you really have to reassess who you are, because I believe that every close relationship changes you. It changes you. It adds to you in a positive or negative way. And the thing is, the time that you need to take is to make that thing into a positive. Because as a woman who I've been physically abused, and that was when I was 14 years old. That's the first time someone hit me. So what I do, if someone as an adult looks like they're gonna even raise their voice, I'm out, because I've already had that happen. And I realize a man who is loving and walking in what God has called him to be, he does not. He can speak or put his point across lovingly without being disrespectful and doing something that's abusive. So at 14, like I said, it took me years to finally, I was a kid then. It took me till I was about 20 years old. It took me 6 years to really heal from that and say, okay, going forward, this is what I need to watch out for, and this is what my standard is and what I won't tolerate. And so even if it's not as drastic as maybe physical abuse, but it could be emotional abuse. When someone says something to you that has damaged you and the relationship is over, you have to kind of rehash that thing and say, okay, how did this make me feel? Why did it make me feel like this? Is there any truth to what that person said? And how do I move forward so that I don't take this into the next relationship or punish the next person for what this other person has done to me? And until you're ready to do that, then you're not ready to move into the next relationship. And there could be more, but it's about 2 minutes to 1, and I know I can't stay on today. So
Well, I got it till about 1:45, but
okay.
It's all about how everybody wants to rock and roll with it. But yeah, I mean, we're definitely at that 1 o'clock mark. So if people want to drop off, they can. If people want to hang out, they can. Like I say, I can do to about 1:45, then I'm gonna have to drop off. And I guess we only have like 1 or 2 people that haven't really been hanging out with us left. And we just hang out because we know sometimes people just need an adult conversation.
Y'all are my people.
Yeah.
My people. I miss you so much. I mean, y'all been hanging out down there. Like you got on me about Baltimore. I'm gonna try to get these people to come
That's
out.
why I told you. You need to go ahead and get you some people. All you need is 3. Now your sister not up there? Is your sister up there?
I'll try. I have to get off with you guys to call her now, because I'll see her tomorrow, and I'm gonna see if she's willing to participate.
Well, I'm just saying, I mean, even if she don't come to the call, she can at least, like I said, she can go out with you
to the outings. Yeah, she'll do it. She will. Okay, so that's 1 right there. And I think I have 2 more people I'm gonna reach out to.
Yeah, and then that way, you'll have at least a couple of people that can help you. And then we can start to schedule literal events in Baltimore, and then that'll help you to have places to go and things to do. And then if people are interested, from going to the events, they can come back here and get the actual lesson.
Okay, so, I got you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, y'all, I'm signing off. Happy Juneteenth.
Happy Juneteenth.
Happy Juneteenth.
Thank you. All right, I'll see y'all next time.
See you later. Okay, well, like I say, y'all can just talk now. You don't have to wait on me. Y'all don't need to raise your hands. Just unmute and
I got
talk
something to
about whatever you want. You said
I got
what?
something to say. I got something to say because I'm about to leave myself. You know, with all of this, don't do that, Jay. Don't act like you're really in tune to what I'm saying. Listen, with all of this, one thing that we have to be mindful of is
Bye, Sifa.
is, you know, a lot of things we're saying is easier to say until it happens. Sometimes that when you don't know, you have to resolve some issues until you are put into the position. So if you meet someone, you could say that you've been ready for a relationship, but then you meet that person and you realize, okay, I feel this is like more of a real deal type of person. But then you might find yourself wanting to run because you're scared or whatever, or anxiety, or just the past rise up. So some things don't happen until you're put into the position. You know, it's just like training for an event. You know, you can get on that treadmill all day long for that 5K, but that treadmill and those roads are totally different. Once you hit that pavement or whatever, wherever you're running, it's going to be different. So you may come across some obstacles, but it doesn't mean that you run out of it. It doesn't always mean that. It means that, okay, I didn't realize I had this until this person came into my life. And that's what the meaning of iron sharpens iron also means. So some things won't be exposed until you are into that spot. You won't get the opportunity to work it out or to see if you have really changed until you're in that spot. So be mindful, because sometimes like Davida said, one person yelled at her or was abusive. So it was abusive, but then that was at 14. But today she says, if that person's yelling, she's not going to deal with them. Doesn't mean their motives are the same. It doesn't mean that. It just, there's a way that sometimes it could be talked around and say, hey, those, once again, like I said, hey, those are things that trigger me off, so letting somebody in.
But I think that goes back to what Chuck was saying and even what Mitch was saying, because it's a mixture of communication and also, really, reaching out to the person. Because if you tell somebody, hey, I don't like being yelled at, and then they're still yelling at you, that they might not be what most people would consider truly toxic, but they might be toxic to you.
Right.
Like, I don't deal with people yelling and screaming and arguing. I'm non-argumentative. I can't argue, but I don't like that. Once I figure that we're not having a discussion, it can be a heated discussion, but once it's gone beyond a heated discussion, I ain't gonna lie, I just check out. Because
my question is, what is your definition? I want to hear, what's your definition of a heated discussion?
Well, as long as if we got information going back and forth, like if me and you, for instance, were talking about something and you were like, well, Jay, I'm telling you, I think this is be better for the group and blah, 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 blah. And then you're presenting your argument, then I'll probably be okay. Even though you're yelling, I'll probably be okay. But then when you're just like, well, you're just stupid. You're just a dummy. And I don't care what you think. Now you're in emotion.
So when it crosses a certain line, as they say, when you're hitting below the belt, then that's when it's like, that's toxic to you.
Basically. Yeah. So it might not be to other people. Other people might be able to see through those emotions. But, I know for me at the point that I am in my life, I'm just not going to deal with it.
And, for people that actually cuss on a consistent basis, when it becomes that you're just stupid or whatever, may not see it as toxic because that's their language. That's their normal verbiage. So they don't see it, compared to someone who doesn't may say, whoa, 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 I'm not good with all of this, because that's not the language I speak. That language actually triggers into the shut up mode.
Yeah, well, that's why. Go ahead, Mustafa.
Yeah, I was just saying, that's what I was saying earlier. It's just like your dialect, how you speak with others. You know, if you're from a certain place, you're from the South, people how they talk in the South. You go somewhere else, you know what I mean, and you're talking to people, they're like, what are you saying? Like, why are you talking to me like that? You know, and it's the differences, you know, and I think it's just when you communicate to someone initially about it, that's really the key in all of that, you know. And if it's not working for you, you tell somebody else, stop raising your voice, you know. And if they continuously raising their voice and you don't like it, then that's kind of your call. But you've done your part. You've communicated that to them, you know, and it's up for them to make I wouldn't say make the change, but help you, you know, get an understanding of what you really mean. You know what I'm saying? So that's really.
There's a difference in raising your voice out of anger versus passion. I mean, you can be really passionate about a subject and raise your voice, and it's clear that you're just excited versus there being negative energy behind it.
And eights are like that.
What was that?
I said us eights are like that. We can be passionate.
Yeah.
And end up coming off as strong, but we're just passionate.
Yeah. And I've had people who they don't want to deal with me because I mean, so, you know, Jay said that he'll just cut it off. And I will sometimes, and Michelle probably can relate to this. Sometimes it's, you know, I'm just like, okay, you want to do this? We can do this. Because I don't care. It don't bother me. And so then I'm just messing with them. I'm like, okay. So, and they're just really upset. But, you know, there's a point at that point, I have decided that it's not important for us to get to a conclusion, because you have decided that no matter what I say, you're not going to listen anymore. You just want me to listen to you. So that's fine. So now I'm just going to mess with you about what point you're making because I'm bored. No, but no,
that might be a toxic person who the person who always has to be right.
That is.
Well, sometimes it's this. This is what I think it is most of the time. It's very difficult for a person to change their mind about something that they feel very strongly about. That's anybody.
That's true.
But what's key is where the difference lies is when you don't understand why you believe or feel that way. And that's what my conversation is more about is, you know, what's behind it. And when a person realizes that they don't have a reason, that's when they start to get very defensive because they feel like you're attacking their beliefs and they don't know how to defend it because they don't know why they feel that way.
Right.
They're just going off what's been taught and shown, and that's their perception and saying like, you know what? No, I always been told to eat my vegetables first before drinking my water kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, and they don't want to say I don't know because then they feel like they're going to lose the argument. It's like, it's not a win-lose thing. We're just, you know, talking. But that's what it starts to become. And then they start, you know, doing the below the belt stuff, or they just get very angry or upset because they feel attacked. And you're really, because I mean, I've asked people because I genuinely want to know, like, I'm trying to understand where that comes from because maybe there's something that I don't know that would be helpful to me. And, you know, they kind of go to, oh, you know, you're trying to tell me that. No, I'm not trying to tell you anything. I'm asking because I really want to know.
Yeah, some people, and they do get on the defense side. And it's like, hey, I learned because we're direct. And like Mustafa said, people take that on the defense side. And I've been in San Antonio. And yes, they're a family-oriented area, and I understand. But what you're doing is getting to the point. Like how some countries, some people who speak their languages, when they speak in English, they leave out certain vowels. They just, it's, you know, they leave out, it's, you know, we'll consider it broken English, but it's leaving out words to get straight to the point. So, you know, we'll get straight to the point, and some people take offense, or I have always heard this. One thing I like about Sakanda is that she don't sugarcoat. She just straight tell you. And it's like, I don't have time to lie. You may not like it. And I tell you, I say, you may not like how I say it. I'm just being straightforward, but I'm not being mean. I'm just getting to the point. Or if you ask somebody this question, I love this. I love doing this back to people. Don't tell nobody. It's, can you do that for me? I really don't want to, but I'll do it. Or oh, I got something. We don't want to do that. Okay, that's fine. And then they get upset because you called them out on it. It's like all I did was interpret what you just said to me from my view. I just gave back the feedback of what you said. I said, don't worry about it. If you don't want to do it, I don't want anybody to do anything that they don't want to do. You know, and then they don't like it that when you call out what they just said to you, I just interpret it back. That's all.
There are cultures though where being direct is considered being rude.
True.
It's not a culture that I could exist in, which is why we have so much fun at my job.
It's true. Well, that was my point with what I put in the chat. If this is becoming such a large group and we're going to have all these different cultures, and we have regional cultures and regional aspects and then worldwide, you have to learn whatever culture you think you're going to be communicating with. Because like in the Spanish culture, when I first learned Spanish, and our Spanish teacher also told us how to deal with people from Latin-based countries as it relates to business, you have to get to know them personally before you go directly into the conversation about business. And it has to feel sincere to them. Otherwise, they're not going to deal with you. And then also with what I do now, it's more difficult to do it on the phone, but you had to kind of quickly establish some type of rapport with the person you're talking to get the information you need so that they can get the benefits that they're applying for. And everything comes back to communication and listening, because you got to learn how to hear what they're saying with the intent they mean for you to hear it, not just how you think they said it. And that is very difficult because we have become such a blended world.
That's rich food right there, Miss Mashawn. Right there. That is absolute wisdom. Rich food. You want to be a part of our sociology department?
No, thank you.
Mustafa.
Yeah,
we can hear you.
Yeah, I was just saying, we were talking about earlier about like when it comes to like arguments and heated discussions, and something that I think that when it comes to arguments or discussion, something I say is think about your argument. If your partner or as a relationship, you're not thinking about the argument as this is us against the problem. You know what I'm saying? Rather than you versus me and who's right, that's not the way to go about it. It's rather more like, hey, we have a problem A, and how are we going to tackle this problem together? You know what I'm saying? And that's how, a relationship that isn't toxic will definitely work. You know what I mean? But when it's about, who is right and who's wrong, then someone ends up bitter, especially if that thing is not dealt with to some degree. So that's one thing I could say when it comes to arguments, because that, from experience, and a lot of these things I speak on from an experience point of view, it's like, imagine, let's say you're getting to know somebody, right? And this is the opportunity for them to show you certain things, right? Especially a part of their character. One thing is I'm big on communication and just being able to be open with people, not necessarily having to be vulnerable, right? But being honest, and so, I had an experience where there was something that I discovered I was noticing, and I was bringing it up to the young lady. I was saying, this is something I'm not liking. This is something I'm not seeing. I'm seeing from you, and it's like, what's going on? And she was getting defensive, getting offensive as if I was like attacking her. I'm like, no, don't take it as if I'm attacking you. This is an opportunity. I'm being open with you. Like, imagine if I wasn't being open with you. I could have been like, hey, yo, peace out. And you would have complained I was ghosting you. So I'll just be upfront with you and let's discuss this and let's see where, how we can move forward. But she was getting defensive, as if like I was attacking. And I was like, going to what I was just saying, no, don't think of it like that. Hey, I'm bringing up a problem, right? How do we attack this problem together? You know what I'm saying? So that at the end of the day, we can move forward healthily, But when individuals don't necessarily
think of it that way, and it's like, yo, I want to be right all the time. I don't want to feel like I'm wrong, which, by the way, is never the case in life. You're gonna make mistakes, you know what I mean? So for people to always get defensive as if nah, I wasn't wrong in this, never. You know, that's selfishness in a sense. And going back to what we were saying before, that's toxic, and that can be toxic in itself. Selfishness, you know, not being able to think of others, not being able to consider others, you know. And so that's what ties into definitely when I was talking about like just how you look at a problem from a relationship point of view. You know, someone who isn't selfish is gonna hear you out. Someone who is selfish is gonna be like, "What do you mean? Why do you feel that way?" No, I don't think I did anything wrong. You know what I mean? And so those are the differences between the two. You know?
Yeah. I've got to get ready to head out myself, but I wanted to just say that's some golden information that I preach all day concerning being together against the problem versus being against each other. I love that.
I know, that's good. That's good, rich food.
So you all be blessed. I'm going to the African Art Museum now.
Bye, Pastor Sean. Hey, Pastor Sean, if you want to pray for somebody, you can pray for me.
All right, I sure will.
Have a good weekend.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.